In this episode, I explore a few things about how grief impacts the body physically, why it's so important to notice these sensations, and some gentle practices like yoga, breathwork, and somatic therapy which can help release grief from your body. My hope is that this episode will leave you with some simple tools that you can use to loosen or lighten your own grief. Hello and welcome to this episode of A Gift for Grief. Today I'm diving into a topic regarding grief that doesn't get talked about enough: grief and the body. When most of us think about grief, we think of it as emotional, but the truth is, grief just doesn't live in our minds, it shows up in our bodies too. It can change how we breathe, how we sleep, how we eat, how we carry ourselves through the day, and sometimes if we don't pay attention, it can leave us feeling stuck. So how does grief show up in the body? When we experience a major loss, our bodies slip into stress mode. Cortisol, the stress hormone, rises, our heart rates can shift, and even our immune system can weaken. This physical response to grief can show up in many ways, like feeling exhausted no matter how much sleep you get, or struggling with insomnia, or experiencing unexplained aches and pains, or noticing changes in digestion and appetite, whether that's a loss of interest in food or seeking comfort in it. And then there's the heaviness, that weight in the body that makes everything feel harder to carry. If any of this sounds familiar, you are not imagining it. You're not broken. This is your body responding to loss, trying in its own way to help you survive something incredibly difficult. I remember after my son Matthew died, I caught every cold and virus going around. My asthmatic symptoms worsened and I was full of aches and pains. About a year later, I felt like I had a constant lump in my throat. You know that feeling in your throat when you feel really upset, but it didn't go away, and I convinced myself that it was probably cancer. My doctor reassured me that there was nothing there, but I went on to Dr. Google, as you do, and I discovered a condition called the globus sensation. This is a sensation of having a lump or tightness or obstruction in your throat, even when nothing is physically there. People commonly experience this during times of strong emotion such as grief, anxiety, or stress, because the muscles in the throat tighten as part of the body's emotional response. The weird thing was that when I discovered this, it magically went away on its own. There's also a long-standing idea present in both complementary and alternative medicine that different emotions can be stored or expressed in different parts of the body. According to this perspective, our organs are not just physical systems, but also energetic centres that reflect and process our emotional state. For example, anger is often said to be connected to the liver, fear with the kidneys, and sadness with the lungs, and so on. One of the most powerful things we can do in grief is simply listen to our body. By paying attention to where we hold the emotions in the body, whether it's a racing heartbeat, a heavy chest, or a clenched stomach, we gain insight into how our nervous system is dealing with the grief. Our body is always talking to us. It holds tension, it sends signals, it remembers. There's a great book on this subject called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. I'm not sure I pronounced that very well, but I will add it in the show notes. So I'd invite you to take a moment to check in with yourself right here, right now. Let's pause. I invite you to gently shift your attention inward and just begin to observe your body. If you're driving or at work, pause this episode so you can follow this exercise later. You can start by mentally scanning your body. Move your awareness slowly from the top of your head and face, noticing all the tiny muscles around your face, your eyes and your jaw, and the muscles in your neck and shoulders. These areas are where we hold a lot of tension. Continue to scan your body. How does your chest feel? How is your breathing? Is it shallow? Does it feel restricted or forced in any way? Are you holding your breath in subtle ways you weren't even aware of? If you gently place a hand on your chest and the other hand on your tummy and notice your breathing, what do you feel? Is your breath moving into your chest and into your tummy? And now bring your awareness to your back and your arms and your hands. Are you holding onto any tension in these areas? Are your hands clenched or relaxed? You don't need to change anything, just acknowledge what's there. This isn't about fixing you. This isn't about getting it right. It's simply about noticing what's already present exactly as it is. There's no need to change your breath. There's no need to adjust your posture or release the tension unless it happens naturally. This exercise is about tuning in and noticing what your body is holding on to. Sometimes just the act of noticing brings a small shift. Other times nothing changes, and that's perfectly okay too. So take a few moments to be with yourself, to listen to your body. Feel your body. Really notice what's there. Whether it's a heaviness, a tightness, an ache, or another sensation. Maybe even talk to your body. Say, welcome to my body. You can stay as long as you like. Invite it in. Allow it to be there, because grief needs to be felt. Grief needs to be cared for. It needs to be seen. It needs to be loved. It needs to be processed. Sometimes grief gets stuck in the body, and talking therapy alone is not always enough to get it moving. So what can we do to release what's there? Here are a few practices that can support your body during grief. These practices are not about getting over your grief. They're about giving your body a little relief and a little grounding so that grief can move instead of becoming stuck. And my first go-to would be gentle yoga. Now, I know that when you're in the depth of grief, even the idea of moving your body can feel like too much, and I get that. But this isn't about pushing through it or fixing anything. It's about gentle support, about creating space to feel and to heal one breath at a time. So here are a few key ways yoga can help during the grieving process. When we're grieving, the body often stays stuck in a kind of survival mode, what we call fight or flight. But through slow, intentional movement and mindful breathing, yoga sends signals of safety to the brain. And those signals can help reduce anxiety, soften overwhelm, and bring the nervous system back into a more grounded, restful state. Yoga also creates space for the emotions. This practice isn't about pushing grief away. In fact, yoga gives your emotions permission to be here. It gives them space to move through us and sometimes even to release. It's a place where we can just feel without judgment. Yoga also restores the breath. Grief can make our breathing really shallow, sometimes even restricted, and without realising it, we can spend hours, even days, holding our breath or barely breathing at all. But in yoga, we come back to the breath. We notice it, we nurture it, and little by little, those deeper inhales and longer exhales can offer a sense of calm and steadiness that we may not have felt in a long time. Yoga also offers grounding and stability. Simple poses like child's pose or mountain pose can create a sense of support in your body when everything else feels shaky and uncertain. These shapes remind us I am here, I am still standing, I am supported, and sometimes that's all we need to hear. And finally, yoga invites rest and release. Restorative yoga in particular is powerful for grief. It allows your body to soften, your mind to settle, and your heart to just be. Often, deep rest is what the grieving body craves the most, and this kind of yoga gives you permission to take that rest without guilt or pressure. In short, yoga doesn't fix grief, but it creates a compassionate space where the body and mind can soften, release, and begin to heal one breath at a time. Now, breathwork is another tool we can use. Many people find themselves holding their breath without realising it or breathing shallow just into the chest. This keeps the body in a stress state and can make feelings of heaviness, anxiety or overwhelm even more intense. Breathwork offers a gentle way to interrupt that cycle and bring a sense of calm back to both the body and the mind. Here are some ways breathwork can support someone who is grieving. It regulates the nervous system. Slow, intentional breathing activates the body's relaxation response, helping reduce stress and overwhelm. Breathwork brings presence and grounding. Focusing on the breath helps anchor us in the present moment when grief pulls us into the past or creates fear about the future. Breathwork softens physical tension. Deeper breathing releases tightness in the chest, shoulders and stomach, common places where grief shows up in the body. Breathwork also creates emotional space. By slowing down the breath, we create a little more room to feel and process emotions without becoming flooded by them. And breathwork restores balance. Even just a few rounds of steady, mindful breathing can help bring clarity and steadiness during moments of intensity. At its heart, breathwork is simple but powerful. It reminds the grieving body that it's safe to breathe and safe to rest. Another great tool for releasing grief in the body is somatic therapy. Somatic therapy generally refers to the body as opposed to the mind. This is all about noticing where grief is sitting in the body. Maybe you feel it like a knot in your stomach or a weight in your chest. Somatic practices can be as simple as a body scan, bringing awareness to what's going on inside, or even shaking out your arms and legs just to release some of that stuck energy. And if yoga mats or therapy sessions don't appeal to you, that's okay. Movement of any kind helps. A walk outside, dancing to music in your kitchen, all of that helps your body process stress and potentially soften the edges of grief. Traditional counselling or other forms of talking therapy can be beneficial for people who are grieving, but it's important we allow the grief to move through the body too. When we're grieving, the body often speaks before we even realise what's happening. If you're exhausted, no matter how much sleep you get, if your muscles ache, or if rest feels impossible, that's your body's way of saying, This is a lot. I'm carrying something very heavy. Our bodies are constantly giving us messages, but so often, especially when we're lost in thought or consumed by emotion, we miss those messages. Other times, we notice the signals but push them away, hoping they'll disappear. Maybe we tell ourselves we should be strong or just get on with it. The truth is, when we ignore or suppress what the body is trying to tell us, those feelings don't vanish. Instead, they sink deeper. Over time, unprocessed grief can show up as tension, headaches, digestive issues, chronic pain, or even more serious illness. This is why practices like yoga, breathwork, and somatic therapy can be so powerful. They help us slow down, tune in, and create space for the body to release what it's been holding on to. By listening, instead of pushing away, we give grief a safe path to move through us. So please, give yourself permission to rest, to breathe, to move in whatever way feels gentle and right for you. As a therapist, I used EMDR alongside EFT tapping therapy. Both of these techniques regulate the nervous system by engaging the body, and they are very safe to use for people going through grief and trauma. When I first went to a colleague for support with my grief, I said to him, "I just don't know where to start. I have all this grief in my body and my mind won't be quiet." I'll never forget those first few words he asked me. "Well, how do you feel?" And I said, "I feel like I have an enormous hole in my torso. You can see through it and it hurts." And then he said, "Let's start there." We started tapping around my meridian points using the phrases I had described. Even though I have this enormous hole in my torso, I accept myself. Even though you can see through this hole and it hurts, I accept myself. And I continue to tap with his guidance. After a few rounds of tapping, my colleague asked me how I felt. I took a few moments to feel what was going on, and to my amazement, I couldn't find that hole in my torso. I couldn't see it in my mind's eye, but what completely blew me away was I connected with my son Matthew. I could see his face smiling at me, and he joked. "Come on, Mum," he said. "You know all this stuff. Just let it go. I'm fine here. Just let it go." It felt like I needed that permission from him to let it go, and it was incredible. I talk about this more in my books. Now, it wasn't the cure for my grief, but it loosened something inside that was keeping me stuck. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's commonly known as tapping therapy. It's a type of energy psychology, but also considered a type of somatic therapy. It involves tapping on specific acupressure points on the body while focusing on an emotion, a memory, or a thought. I highly recommend EFT tapping therapy if you're feeling stuck too. I also recommend EMDR. EMDR is often categorised as trauma therapy. It includes strong somatic elements helping the body reprocess stuck emotions. Remember, your body is constantly sending you messages, and paying attention to them is not only healing, it's an act of self-compassion. Whether it's through gentle movement, breath work, or working with a trained somatic therapist, every small step helps you reconnect with yourself and create space for grief to move instead of becoming stuck. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that exploring the different ways grief can live in the body and how somatic therapies can help us process, release and heal, it will guide you in the right direction for the support you need. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need it. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, honour what you're feeling, and remember, feeling is healing. And healing is a journey you don't have to walk alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Gift for Grief. If you found it comforting, please consider subscribing to my podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Please also leave a review because it helps others to find the show. Together we can help each other become more grief literate. To learn more about my personal journey and my 2 books on grief, visit www.louisebates.co.uk. The music on this podcast was written and recorded by my son Matthew Bates and can be found on his 2 albums, Fight Back and Kaleidoscope. And finally, if you're struggling with grief or concerned about your mental health, please reach out to your doctor. You don't have to go through this alone. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and thank you for listening.